Hello, this is Hemingray 1893 saying, if your toolbox is actually just a junk drawer containing a hammer from Walmart and a random assortment of IKEA hex wrenches, do not watch this video. In fact, never watch a video on my channel ever again. Okay, but seriously, today I'm going to be building a display rack for all these little Hot Wheels classic cars that I've accumulated over the years. Most of them I used to store in a cigar box, and as you can see, they're in really good shape. Well, most of them. But, you know, and I decided finally it was time to get them a proper display rack. I will be building this out of wood, and I don't think it's too difficult to put together. First things first, what I've done, you notice I've lined them up based on where I want the cars. Of course, that can change. Actually, it will change because the way I'm actually going to fit them all into the rack. So definitely first lay them out however you would want them on the rack. This is wall mounted or table mounted, by the way. And in order to make your bottom piece, I'd take the 5 cars with the longest length, which are, you know, a bunch of these full-size cars down here, and I'm gonna measure how long these are, because that'll give me the base for how long each of my shelves has to be. Well, after I got all that measured, here I am out in the garage. It's a little bit of a gloomy summer day outside. Anyway, I got these 2 boards that are going to make the sides and the shelves for the display rack. Also, back here I got a piece of plywood I'm going to cut for the backing. And I found out that those cars, you know, lined up, a little bit of space in between them and a little bit more space on the ends, comes out to roughly 20 inches. So I'm gonna take these boards. These are like, forgot exactly what they're called. They're just softwood scraps. I got them at Menards for 96 cents each. And I really don't care how they look because I'm gonna paint them. So then I'm just gonna take my vintage Stanley combination square. This is Hemingway's workshop. We have to use, you know, some tools that are ancient, of course. And I just gotta mark 20-inch increments and cut them. Then next I'll show you how I'm gonna hold the cars on. Alright, well now that I have all my shelves cut, yeah, I know they're not all equal. It's because, you know, I'm really bad at cutting. I'll fix that. Anyway, I just decided, well, now that I've got all the shelves and the top, what should I do for the sides? How high should I make them? And I figured, actually, I took my tallest Hot Wheels car, this 29 Ford pickup. These cars aren't necessarily all to scale with each other. I used a scrap piece, you know, to simulate the thickness of a shelf, and I found out, put my tallest one there, the thickness of the width of one of these is actually the perfect height for a shelf. So I just put them all up like that, and I'm just gonna measure them and see how high we have to make this thing. And those be my sides. And then next up I have to get with individual car placement, and that's actually how I'm gonna keep the cars on this display rack. Alright, and well, now we're here at what I think might be the most interesting part, is figuring out your placement for the cars. Right now I have all the cars lined up how I would want them. You know, I tried to separate Fords and Chevys from Mopars and that. Tried not to have 2 trucks next to each other. Tried to, you know, not have 2 colors next to each other. You know, tried not to put the Ranchero next to the El Camino. You know what I mean. So this is just how I like it. This is the way I'm gonna hold these on here. These are the shelves, and I don't want to have like a piece here to obstruct your view of the cars. So what I've kind of developed, and this is why I would not recommend this being in use as like a storage rack for a kid's room or a playroom or something, unless you have a really organized kid. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna measure the wheelbase of the car, like take this 442 for example, and I'm going to actually take a Dremel and cut grooves in the wood that the wheels will sit in, and that will stop them from moving around. You know, I suppose if you were going to use this for a kid's room, you could maybe put dividers and just put, like, you know, the end pieces right there, or even take a picture of the car, put it behind it. Hey, look, you just match it up to the car. Another option you could do if this is your thing, especially some of these, like they got really fancy grills, cut it at an angle. But I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to keep with the side profile. So I just got to measure out the wheelbases, mark the grooves, label what car goes here, because you'll notice that the two cars can have different wheelbases, this 442 and this truck. While similar, do have different wheelbases, so you can't just pop one in any space. They will have to be kind of specific where they go. Anyway, I'm just gonna get to work on that. This is what I was talking about. Everything is labeled. It has its own space, you know, very specific. And now I'm just gonna go cut the grooves and look at the difference that Firebird and that 64 Impala. Front wheels the same place, rear wheels, they have different wheelbases. That's a good example of what I was talking about. Well, this is how they look after adding the grooves with the Dremel. Not too bad. Yeah, and after some fine tweaking, because my Gran Torino for some reason didn't want to fit in its spot, this is what they look like. What? You expected professional looking results from a YouTube video? You're out of your mind. Anyway, well, now it's time to get these sanded, maybe paint them, and prepare for final assembly. Well, here I am back out in the garage. It's a much nicer day today. And as promised, I have, you know, smoothed out these edges. Still got a little bit to do right there. I used a combination of the circular saw. You can see the marks. And this vintage Nicholson rasp right here. Next thing I'm going to do is put the sides on, assemble the frame and the shelves of this thing. These are the ends. And I got these old Sterling nails. Look at that. Bought it courtesy Home Center. Okay, made by Northwestern Steel and Wire Company. Okay, these guys are super awesome. If you're into trains, Northwestern Steel and Wire had the last steam locomotives in revenue service in the United States, and actually I think in North America. The last steam locomotive they own ran December 3rd, 1980. And I think these are old enough where, you know, who knows, they could have been pulled by a steam locomotive. That's kind of cool. So, and I'll put them in with this vintage Craftsman ball peen hammer. Not really sure why I'm using a ball peen. Kind of awesome. Plus, I hope I wouldn't need the claw, because I hope I would put them in straight every time. So let's get that assembled, because then after we get that assembled, I can pull out my piece of plywood back here and make the back. I didn't measure it out. I'm going to trace it and just cut it out with a jigsaw, because well, I didn't say this, but when I you know, file all that down, it will be slightly smaller than it was initially, so I just want to make sure, you know, I didn't have to go back and recut it. Well, here it is, all painted and assembled. That's what it looks like. You can see I typed up the names of the cars in Microsoft Word, printed them out, put them on the front, and I also went through, printed some signs off, and you know, just glued them on the wall. I kind of made this into like a classic garage theme, since I have, you know, all these classic cars. You can kind of do whatever decoration scheme you want. Supercar garage, racing pit, Main Street, or you can paint it just one solid color. Fine, be that way. Anyway, yep, this is for tabletop or wall mount use. It's not that heavy, so if you do mount it on the wall, I would definitely recommend putting it into a stud. And well, that's pretty much it. I think it turned out pretty nicely. Okay. Anyway, just notes on the names of the cars. You notice that these two, this 3100 and the sedan delivery, they're not Hot Wheels and Matchbox cars. They're just other companies. Quick note on ID2, this 62 Bel Air has 2 tail lights. Impalas have 3. So that 62 Chevy is a Bel Air. Then this unidentified truck, it's an older one. It is a Chevy K10. You'll notice that if you put it down, it is 4-wheel drive. So that indicates a K series, and it's not a Blazer because we have division between the cab and the bed. Also, GMC just says step side, it's a 100. Ford just says pickup, it's an F100. And, Ford Roadster sedan delivery. And then there's this really old one I have from 1977. It's identified as the Hot Bird underneath. It is a Pontiac Firebird. So, just FYI. Otherwise, yeah, I think that turned out pretty nicely. And good luck, have fun building and collecting.